Welcome to the Plant Cunning Podcast,
where we explore a relationship to plants, other people, and the mysteries of nature.
Coming to you from the high Allegheny Plateau in central New York.
We are your hosts, A.C. Staubel
and Isaac Hill.
Today on the Plant Cunning Podcast, we're thrilled to have herbalist and teacher, distiller, Cathy Skipper. So how are you today, Cathy?
I'm great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being on the show. We have a traditional first question for the Plant Cunning Podcast, and it is, how did you come to the plant path?
I've been on the plant path, well, really before I was born. My grandfather was a doctor, but he was a naturalist. So he brought up my dad in nature. And then my dad was a brewer, but he also was a very avid gardener and the chairman of this ancient sort of Victorian garden in the town that I grew up in. And then I studied herbalism a long time ago, and I realized, I'd always loved plants, but I realized when I started studying botany that I was good at it. There was something, natural. And so I went on and became a herbalist and aromatherapist. And also, just to sort of carry on that lineage, my oldest son actually distills our plants. I'm the harvester. He's a botanist by trade. He's a master botanist trained in the UK. And my other son is a sort of legend in garden design and landscaping in the UK. And so it sort of runs in the family.
Yeah, that plant wisdom. Often once you get excited about plants from a young age, something clicks and you can't stop,
Yeah.
It's interesting how your sons went into different aspects of the distilling side versus the gardening.
Yeah. I've got 4 sons, and, the other 2, even though, it's like, oh, they don't want to be into plants, but there's something deeper. So they end up being into plants, but it's not like a conscious, I want to do this. It's sort of deeper.
Yeah. Totally.
But there's that family,
Yeah. It's like this energy that carries us on. Yeah. And we can't get away from it anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
You see that a lot, I think. But I have my great grandfather's botany book.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Beautiful thing to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I picked up from my grandmother and my mom a love of gardening, and they mostly did flowers and some medicinal and culinary herbs, but I've definitely taken off more on the herbs and the flower side.
Flowers are lovely too, though.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's all plants.
It's all part of the same parcel.
It is, yeah. So in addition to the distillation work and the education about aromatherapy that you and your husband do, which we're going to get into more, I also have been introduced to your work on menopause. And April Coburn had a class on menopause that you were a co-teacher with her on.
Yeah.
And that's how I first heard about you. And I think a lot of our listeners would be interested in hearing about that work as well. So would you tell us about the Alchemy of Menopause?
Of course, that work came through my own sort of journey, because when I got to 50, I found myself at this massive crossroads. And I had a cancer diagnosis. I moved halfway around the world. My youngest of 4 sons, who has a different father from the first 3, was alienated from me. My mother died, and my father sort of lost the plot when his wife died. And I had already, because I'd moved, just kept my precious things in the attic of a house he had, and he threw it all away. So it felt like suddenly this massive crossroads. And, obviously I had to have a hysterectomy, I had cervical cancer, and my husband, my new husband at the time, this was 10 years ago, is a holistic psychiatrist. So he introduced me to depth psychology and Jung and alchemy, psychological alchemy. And I was so kind of desperate that I just ran with this idea of the alchemical stages, which is the processes of the psyche that Carl Jung extracted from alchemy by studying all these ancient texts. And it was just literally a desperate move to find some way of working through this massive crossroads. And actually, it was exactly what I needed. It became like this framework for this massive inner journey. which
Yeah.
ended up in healing my mother line, in understanding much more about my feminine psyche at the time where I was going through menopause, understanding, the inner masculine, the sacred inner marriage, all these concepts suddenly came to life within the practicalities of having to sort of find some sense of self. And I wrote a workbook about it as I was going through the stages. And then I started sort of teaching it with aroma to help these guided journeys. I was trying to take women on sort of the same journey I'd been on. And it just went from there. I've been teaching it for 10 years in different formats. Before COVID, I taught it a lot live. Then I went on to online. And now, and April did my hybrid course. Well, no, it's now a hybrid course. She did my menopause course twice. And then the mentorship, where we spend 9 months and I teach women really deeply how to do it. And the piece that I wasn't looking at was really, because I was so involved in this emotional, mental, spiritual side of the journey in terms of depth psychology. I needed someone who had great knowledge of how to support women with herbs. And I knew April did. So I said, let's do it together. And then it's complete. And so that's how we got to working together. And we're still working together. And it's great.
Yeah, that is a great combo of
Yeah.
the emotional, spiritual, psychological, even getting into the ancestral
Yeah,
work,
which is the
all of
collective
that.
aspect. Yeah.
Yes, with the like, practical this herb for that
Yeah.
aspect.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah. It
helpful.
really made the whole thing whole. But I do believe that menopause is a massive opportunity for women to actually rebirth themselves out of domestication that's been going on for generations into their
Mm.
sovereign selves, which is whole.
This part, the sovereign woman. Can you
Yeah.
explain the maiden mother sovereign woman crone?
Yeah. So, there used to be three aspects of the
Yeah.
feminine journey through life. So the maiden, the mother, and the crone. But actually, the crone is when we're facing death. We're in
Yeah.
our late 80s. There is death, and we're getting ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, any journey, you get ready for it if you're sensible. And so that's the crone period. But actually, we have 2.5, 3 decades of sovereignty ahead of us, which is where our voice, our wisdom, our emotional experience needs to be out there in the world. It needs to be heard. We need to actually be in that place ourselves, which is what the journey is. That's the rebirth. And then we need in the world sovereign women. And Holland herself is very interesting because, in the people that have sort of led the way in feminine consciousness since the 50s, who are mainly women who are interested in depth psychology, the symbol of the sovereign woman is the virgin. Not because she hasn't had sex, it's metaphorical, but because the hymen is whole. And so the idea is the sovereign woman is whole unto herself. Part of
Mm.
that is actually reclaiming this inner child, this playfulness, this part of us that we abandoned in order to fit in. And once we get to that place, what I found, and this is really my motivation for carrying on doing this work with women, is I found that my voice came home to its normal voice. I'd spent most of my life dissociated, except for that's why I think the gardening and the herbs and the plant world kept me, grounded. But there was a part of me that was always sort of dissociated. And I came into my body. I came home. And I wouldn't be the woman I am today, sharing with you, being here, doing the work I do, if I hadn't had gone through that initiation. And perimenopause takes 2 to 10 years. It's the biggest initiation I can think of in the world.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's such a interesting point that, there is just this huge chunk of years of a woman's life where you're not quite the mother, you're not quite the crone, and we've just skipped over that. And I think that's why there's so much anxiety around menopause. Like, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why there's
Yeah.
anxiety around perimenopause and menopause, based on our society's ideas around it, but it's so empowering to hear your take on that transformation and how you're coming home into your own body.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just really brilliant. So I appreciate that work.
I also really like that too, the sovereign woman too, because I'm a Vedic astrologer and we have this Nisargika dasha, the natural time periods.
Yeah.
And you start moon when you're with the mother, Mars you start separating from the mother, Mercury you start talking, Venus you go through puberty, and then you go through Jupiter when you're focused on the career, the family, and then Sun period starts at age 50.
Yes,
And that goes,
exactly.
yeah. And then Saturn isn't until 70, 75.
Yeah.
But you have that sun period where you are the sovereign.
Yeah, and the sun, the solar plexus, it's our identity. And Jung said the same thing. The first part of life is not the same as the second part of life. We shouldn't be doing the same things. We shouldn't be reflecting in the same way. And the maturation of the psyche does mature. It's not just about getting old and crony.
Yeah.
We actually mature psychically. And that maturation takes us into this awareness of the archetypes and the collective unconscious. And that's where the ancestral stories, we start to realize as women, actually, my challenges, the things that I'm having to work through, didn't start with me. My mother had to work through them on one level. So did my grandmother. So did my great grandmother. There's an ancestral element to this story.
Yeah.
Then there's all the family karma, and then
Absolutely.
there's all
Yeah.
these patterns just keep.
Yeah. It's like the fractals in nature. The psyche is like a fractal. Everything keeps repeating itself until we make it conscious.
So you mentioned when you were getting into the menopause support, the work that you were doing to support women through menopause, that you would work with essential oils and aromatherapy. And I'm wondering aromatherapy is how is aromatherapy a powerful tool for this transformation that we're talking about and for healing in
Yeah.
general?
Well, our sense of smell is the only one of our five senses that doesn't go through the thalamus. So the thalamus is like a filter. So if I'm looking at you on the screen, if my sense of sight wasn't filtered by the thalamus, I wouldn't be able to focus on you because I would be receiving everything that my eyes could see. And I would be hearing every single noise. I'm cutting out most of the noise to concentrate on what you're saying to me. I'm cutting out most of the vision to concentrate on I'm cutting out most of my sense of touch because otherwise I'd be like this.
Yeah.
But the sense of smell is the only smell that goes directly to the limbic brain. And the
Ah.
limbic brain is the ancient part of our brain, but it's also very connected to memory, to emotion, to the unconscious. So, in healing, it's the unconscious, making the unconscious conscious. What is in our unconscious is really what controls us. It's not what we're aware of. It's what is autonomously hiding out in our unconscious. So the sense of smell and aromas enable us to, when I'm teaching people, I say, be like a vase. And it's a communication. The aromas are in aromatic plants the way they communicate. A plant will actually be changing its aromatic constituents all the time in terms of the quantities, depending on if there's a pathogen around, even depending if in the next field sheep are overeating it,
Wow.
the same species, it will sense it and it will start to change. Even the natural cloud seeding, not the cloud seeding that everybody's angry about, but natural cloud seeding is conifers that change their quantities of terpenes, etc., in the tree in order to try and control the temperature of the forest. So aromatic plants are masters in communication. So we use these aromas as a tool, especially when we're guiding into the unconscious. Because the imaginal realm, which is our inner realm. So when you're doing a guided journey, or if you've taken psychedelics, you're actually having a relationship with this imaginal realm. And like Jung said, the imaginal realm is real. It's not material, but it's real. What isn't real is that horrible imagination when we refuse to feel a feeling and then the imagination takes over and the worst things possible are happening. You imagine, oh God, my kid's going to die. He's on the road. He's not going to get home, and you can't get out. That isn't real. That's a terrible imagination because there's a feeling going on that instead of feeling the feeling, we let the mind take over. But the imaginal realm, this inner life of symbols and imagery, which is actually very feminine in nature, is real. And so aromas help us in a way to guide us into these realms, because each aroma has its own signature. It has its own story. I work a lot with marigold for ancestral healing. Well, if you've seen the film Coco, have you seen the film Coco? Well, it's a cartoon film that's about the Day of the Dead in Mexico. Beautiful film. They spent 10 years researching it to get it right.
Oh, nice.
But it's just full of marigolds, because marigolds were the they created since the Aztecs. They were used for making this path of light so that the ancestors could join the party and the Day of the Dead and, you know, reconnect with the living. So I use marigold when I'm doing some ancestral healing with people, for example, because it's been used for since the Aztecs.
That's awesome.
Mm.
That's really cool.
But watch the film, it's great. It's
I
fun,
want to check it
really
out.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Are there other, just to go back to the menopause work at one more moment, are there other essential oils or plants that you use that are kind of the stars of the show for working with people going through perimenopause and menopause?
Well, it's not so much, you know, because it's the journey within. So it's an inner journey. So there are stars anyway for
Yeah.
all inner journeys. And because, as I said, real healing is becoming more and more whole. Becoming more and more whole is making more and more of what is in our unconscious conscious. Simple, really. And so there are stars for working with unconscious material or you know, what's the word, supporting the rising of unconscious material into consciousness. And one of those stars is cistus. It's actually labdanum. So cistus is a bush from the Mediterranean. It's a rose family bush, but it exudes this sort of sticky resinous on, you know, the sheep used to brush past it in the Mediterranean, and then they would distill, you know, in a very ancient way by putting the sheep's wool over steam to extract the resin. And people would put it on their beards, and now labdanum is used in this trendy beard, you know, product world.
Beard oil. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's actually very spiritual. You know, the ancients had it on their beards because that meant they were always smelling labdanum, and labdanum is the master of shadow work. So, you know, just, you know, I love this analogy. You know, we're always digesting. I had my breakfast an hour ago, but it's still in process of being digested. But we're always being asked to bring to the forefront unconscious material and really digest it, assimilate it, integrate it. That's really the life of the psyche. So labdanum, when they had it on their beards, was that idea that, yeah, I'm here, I'm living my life, I'm looking after my sheep, I'm doing whatever I'm doing, but I'm also aware that the shadow is always asking when it's ready to come, parts of it are asking to come up to be integrated. So I use this very much with shadow work. And the shadow of the feminine is mostly her power. You know, women, in order to fit into, and the feminine in men, feminine principle, let's say, has had to squeeze itself over generations into a patriarchal model of society. So have men, actually, so has the masculine, but in a different way. So when I'm working with women, it's about, you know, where is your power? What have you done with it? How have you buried it, etc. The wild woman. That's what we're working on in the next free class, is the wild woman archetype.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, she's
Goes
great.
that. Yeah. Love her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about distillation in general and just the process of distillation. So you were the harvester and your son is the distiller, but can you just tell us a little bit about what that process of
Yeah.
distillation is and looks like?
Yeah. I mean, I say my son's a distiller. He's the boss of the distillery.
But you're in there. You're in
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
So I started distilling when I was a teacher teaching herbalism in France, you know, with a small copper still. And in fact, that's how I got to America, because I was invited to teach at the International Herbal Symposium about
Whoa.
14 years ago. And I came with the director of the school I was teaching at, and we bought a little still and we did a distillation. So now we have a professional still. And so I do a lot of harvesting. I live in a earthship up a mountain, which is part of an earthship community. So we have 55 acres. So a lot of the conifers and the junipers I harvest here. We also have a bit of land that we bought to grow aromatic plants, which is not far from here, where we harvest things like goldenrod, sagebrush. So my husband and I usually harvest because our distillery is an hour away and it's not so easy to harvest there. We have land here, and also in Taos, New Mexico, there's a lot of wild lands. And
Hmm.
so we harvest those big bags that you get from the building sites, those big white bags
Oh,
that they put,
wow.
yeah, in the back of the truck. And then we drive down and we have we do hydro distillation mainly. So
Hmm.
the plants are put in the big receiving vessel and the steam breaks through. So steam is a very hard worker. So steam will take the aromatic molecules. It'll break open these pockets and there are pockets of aromatic molecules all over the plant, depending on the plant, in the leaves, in the roots, in the flowers. So it breaks open these pockets and takes as much as it can, but steam can only carry a certain weight. And aromatic molecules are actually very light. That's why they diffuse through the air and we can smell smells without being able
Right.
to see them. So it's up to about 20 carbons is about the heaviest molecule that can be taken by the steam. And then it gets condensed with cold water. And so the steam comes back into a liquid, and we have hydrosol, which is the liquid aspect of the aromatic product, and essential oil. And that's it. But it's a beautiful, part of distilling is really the alchemical process from plant to finished product and the people that are involved in it. So it's a family affair.
Mhm.
And it's also to do with the land of New Mexico because we're distilling the plants from here. So there's something really very land-based, very alchemical, very human-based, and very beautiful. And the one thing I will say is I am not into making loads of products with essential oils, pouring essential oils into soaps. The way we use them mainly in our work is just smelling them. So a bottle of essential oil can last for decades because you're just smelling or putting a tiny, tiny micro drop on a scent strip. It's about the aromatic quality. It's not about pouring this into the bath or, it's too precious. You need so much plant material that it's a waste, in my
Mm.
opinion.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah, can you
Oh,
talk
and I
about?
just want to say one more thing. So scent
Hmm.
is, a very spiritual aspect of most major civilizations.
Hmm.
The Egyptians had the blue lotus, which was like a god, and also not just aromatic, but psychedelic. And so, scent was always one of these major aspects, still is in India, China, Egypt, of deep spiritual. They were the priestesses. The priestesses, the myrrh bearers,
Hmm.
they had this initiation into scent. They were the ones that could, work with it. The main myrrh bearer was Mary Magdalene,
Hmm.
So there's an aspect of using scent that's deeply ancient and spiritual.
Yeah, and even in Western esoteric traditions, the scent is a major component of any ceremonial
Yeah.
activities happen.
Yes,
Hmm. Hmm.
It's
absolutely.
like you got to have the suffumigations,
Yeah.
and they have to be the right ones
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yes, exactly.
because
Yeah.
it gets to that deep part. It can trigger that, and
Yes.
and you've got the color and you've got the words and the invocations and everything, but that scent is a crucial part.
Yeah, absolutely. And the dead smell with they eat with their sense of smell.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, that's why when I'm learning the Vedic ways, you don't want anyone to smell the food you offer or the flowers you offer first because they'll steal it. So like dogs
Yes,
shouldn't
exactly. Yeah,
they shouldn't smell the food because the
yeah.
dog will steal it.
Hmm.
Yeah, and we give food to the dead on the altar in India.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So you started, you were doing alchemy before you were doing Jungian analysis or young in learning Jungian theory. Is that true?
No, I was distilling. So
You were
that's an
distilling.
alchemical process. It's one of the
Hmm.
Yeah.
actual alchemical stages. It's called distillatio or solucio. No, sublimatio. Sorry, sublimatio and distillatio are the same thing, and that's distillation. But I learned the Jungian concepts and really got into Jung when I met my husband, as I said,
Right.
who was a Jungian psychiatrist.
So do you think like the actually working with the practical aspect of practical alchemy helped you digest the Jungian theory too?
I'm always practical, that's just my nature.
Mm.
Even the Jungian concepts, I bring them to my clients in a very practical way. And I still do journeys with them, even if I'm just coaching or
Mhm.
that's, I think, my gift is to distill complicated concepts into tangible ways that people can understand and then use for their own self-healing. I'm really into self-healing.
Yeah.
I'm really into, when I have a client, I don't want to keep them forever I want to empower them
Hmm.
so that they can go off with what they've learned and then maybe come back a bit later saying, hey, now I'm at the next stage. But I don't
Mhm.
want an eternal client because then you keep somebody stuck.
Yeah.
We're all wounded and we're all healers. And
Mhm.
so that's really the journey that I'm always aware of my own wound so that then my clients can be aware of their own inner healer. If I just sit there as a healer, then I'm keeping the client stuck in a wounded role. So I think, and Jung spoke about this. This is the wounded
Hmm.
healer's journey, and I think it's really important.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And with self-healing too, I sometimes think about the difference between like active self-healing and passive self-healing. In a way, in one way, part of the active self-healing is just letting yourself heal, naturally. But then there's also the doctor aspect too. How do those two how do you fit those two sides of self-healing together?
I get what you mean. There's a sort of need to surrender to something greater than ourselves in order for self-healing to happen. It's this idea of instead of trying to control something, believing that some part of me will show me, or
Mm.
some synchronicity, or some symbol, or my dreams, or something will show me. I'm often saying, I say it nearly every day, show me the way.
Uh-huh.
Because I don't want to be forcing something anymore. I want to
Right.
be like, so I understand that. And then, yes, there are moments when we need some advice. You know,
Yeah.
it could be a physical, that's where April comes in, with
Hmm.
her plants on the menopause area, or I come in with an oil that I know will shift something,
Yeah.
or just a concept. And so, yes, we need to be able to have that exchange with someone, but I think we need to choose that person carefully and know that it's an exchange and not God given. It's like nothing is written in stone. It's just, can I find that right person for the moment that's going to help me see? Because the thing is, we can see each other's shadow much
Yeah.
better than we can see our own, obviously. So sometimes you just need someone to behold you,
Big time.
see that part of you you're not seeing.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's about for me. It's really, again, that journey to become more whole is to incorporate and integrate into awareness more of our shadow. But sometimes someone else can do that for us because we just can't see that blind spot. That's why people take psychedelics, is really
Yeah.
because that's where, I can't see that bit and I need it. And
Yeah.
hopefully with the right intention, the right sitting, the right setting, they'll find what they need.
Mm.
Yeah, I find that's a big part of the job as an astrologer as well. It's
Yeah.
Mm.
like
Yes, exactly.
because you
I'd
can
love to know more about astrology.
well, you can see in the charts. There's certain things you can see in the chart that then like, okay, well, this is what's going on,
Yeah, yeah,
and that it's hard for people to see for themselves.
Mhm.
yes.
You know.
Yeah, that's why I go to an astrologer. In fact, I've got one of my clients is a very good astrologer, and I use her when I often email her, help. I can't
Yeah.
see this thing. I need to know what's happening.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's good to have a whole team.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there is that balance also with letting the unconscious arise on its own, just but
yeah.
also like helping it along.
Yeah. Well, I think, we need to teach the language of the unconscious because it's not the same language as the left brain. Like astrology is a language of the unconscious in a sense.
Yeah,
Yes, you have to
symbolism.
use your left brain to learn it. But when
Right.
you're looking at the stars, I mean, I don't know because I don't know astrology, but I imagine that, it's showing you what we can't see because it's showing you what is coming from the stars.
Yeah.
And the language of the unconscious is deeply feminine because it's intuitive. It sort of comes from the dark. It's sacred symbolism. It's nature. It's plants. It's dream imagery. I mean, the amount of information. Jung worked with dreams all the time because they're this beautiful gift from the unconscious the left brain is off. It's not there filtering and trying to control and trying to sort of decide what it means. It's just this pure gift. And then when I work with clients this morning, I was working with a woman with her dreams, and we're like, oh God, it's so clear.
Yeah.
But it's just knowing that language.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's it's symbolic language, and
Yeah, it is.
it's like poetry, more like poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And we should teach it to kids at school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what mythology, that's why people
Yeah.
learn
Yeah.
mythology, myths and fairy tales,
Yeah.
and
Types. Yeah.
because that's an access point.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
And then a
exactly. Oh,
language for
important.
talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so when you were talking about the myrrh bearers and this initiation rite that people had to go through to really understand this aromatic medicine and the essential oils and honor it, it brings up a lot of questions about how we lack that in
Yeah.
today's usage of essential oils
Yeah.
and the the integrity around
Yes.
essential oil practitioners. I'm wondering if you could just like tell us your thoughts on
Yeah.
that.
Well, I don't call myself aromatherapist for a start
Yeah.
at all. And luckily I lived in France for 25 years and I trained there. And so aromatherapy is actually part of herbalism. It's just
Yeah.
one aspect. And they use aromatherapy, in France. Gatta first is at the heart. He's the father of aromatherapy, and he was a doctor. They use it medically. So it's got a very different story around it than the English and American version of aromatherapy. But having said all that, the integrity is very difficult because it's a massive industry and it's a corrupted industry. And it's, and I don't want to go into details here, but I do know some things about that industry. And there's rarely, on a mass level, there's rarely any quality or even pure essential oils coming into the US. My advice to anybody who wants to use essential oils for inner work is find a small distiller that you can ask questions to, that you can see how they distill. It doesn't matter, some people say, well, as long as they've got a GCMS, which is the test they do to see what the constituents are in an oil, it doesn't matter, because you can have a massive industrially produced oil that has a GCMS. It's got the constituents, but it's dead. It's not alive. It's been, harvested in different places en masse, brutally extracted, big temperatures, big pressures, doesn't mean anything. I think the really the only way you can go is to work with small distillers that you can build relationship with. Because, if you're working subtly and so part of our work is that we've created a guide and a kit for therapists and practitioners who are psychedelic therapists and practitioners who want to use scent. So for ketamine therapy, which is done in a medical situation, scent is amazing. It comes to life. It's like you are faced with the spirit of the aroma. And this is when you're doing intravenous, intramuscular ketamine. So we've created a kit for ketamine providers. But imagine, if you're using a scent in that kind of setting, and that plant has been through, being obliterated in all the stages of production, well, that will come through. A plant is a living being. So it's much more than just important. It's vital if you're going to be using scent in this way, that like the myrophores and the priestesses, that you use scent that has been tended from the beginning of the process of extraction, which is from harvest to distillation.
Yeah, just thinking about like the harvest methods alone, like you said, are brutal. It's like we're not, I'm picturing you out in the field with your hands and your hand tool,
Yeah.
Harvesting these great big bags of plants
Yeah.
with
Takes us all
respect
day.
and prayer. It takes you
Yeah.
all day, and you
Yeah.
probably make, a tiny amount of
We
essential
make
oil.
100 to 200 milliliters.
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah. So what a vast difference than somebody coming in with big farm equipment and machinery and clear
Well, I
cropping.
have to tell you, you've all seen, in Provence, in the south of France, the rows of lavender that they put
Yeah.
on these beautiful photos. It's a
Yeah.
monocrop. It's
Yeah.
completely dead. They have so many diseases as well and problems with the lavender fields because monocrops are unnatural. There's nothing to, there's no diversity. There's no plants looking after each other. It's just this mass. And everybody's like, oh, so beautiful. It's not. It's monocrop. They're all diseased. It's terribly treated. It's machine harvested in most cases. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot
Yeah.
of lying in the world.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's terrible, horrible.
And beauty is in the eye of the beholder too. And I think a lot of, industrialized people, their eyes have been trained to find straight rows
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
of one thing beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I used to be a winemaker in France, and we were making biodynamic wine, and Beaujolais is it's just a massive. The whole area is wine, and most people wanted that sort of moonscape in between each row because that's neat and tidy. The fact that it's being fed chemically and being herbicided, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I made my first ever distillation with a copper still this summer, and it was
Oh,
lavender.
nice. Where did
Yeah.
you do that?
Where?
Yeah.
So it was at my neighbor's farm, which is a really cool herb farm that supplies herbs to mutual aid projects and other herbalists for free. And they train young farmers. It's
Oh,
called
lovely.
Unadilla.
Maybe I know them.
Unadilla Community Farm.
No, but I'll
It's
look
pretty
it
small,
up.
but they're really
Yeah,
cool. And
right.
they have a few long rows of lavender, and we harvested it and
Nice.
small batch. And I don't think we got really much essential oil. We just included it in the hydrosol,
Yeah,
and they got a bottle of hydrosol.
yeah,
And it's my most favorite thing. Like,
yeah,
I'm obsessed with this lavender
yeah.
hydrosol. It was so fun to be in community and make this together and use
Excuse
that
me.
medicine. So
Yeah,
yeah.
beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
you need about, for lavender, I think, if it's angustifolia, you need about 600 kilos to make
Neat.
a liter.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's quite a high yielding.
Yeah.
Something like Melissa, you need 7 tons.
Oh,
Lemon balm.
geez.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know. She's
Very,
mostly
very
water, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's
And
just,
hydrosols are beautiful too.
I love
Hydrosols are
hydrosols.
beautiful. They're safe.
Yeah.
They have that sort of, in terms of alchemy, it's the solutio, it's that watery, feminine, moony sort of side to them.
Mm,
The essentials don't have because they're sort of hot and oily and
true.
concentrated. So the hydrosols are great.
Yeah, so lovely. So I'm super stoked on the aromatics and the hydrosols and things these days. So
But
yeah.
but I think that's important that I think it's hard for people to conceptualize how much plant material it actually takes to make a small bottle of essential oil. I mean, even if you say things like 7 tons, what is that actually? How many how many
Can't
trucks
even picture
is
it.
It's
that?
enormous. You can't imagine what it looks like. It's just enormous. And that's to make a liter. It's, 2.5 hectares, which is, I think, like 6 acres to make a liter of rose essential oil. So then
Mm,
no wonder when people buy, oh, but I can get a rose oil on Amazon for $9. No, you can't. You're getting some kind of toxic, chemical thing. It's not rose oil. People don't understand
right.
and why
Right.
everything's so easily adulterated.
But then it also it explains why it's so important to source correctly to the essential oils because even because they have big corporations have they need to dilute it with chemicals and so on to make a good profit, because it to actually
Yeah.
price it with the way what it's worth would be so so much money.
Well, then they shouldn't make it.
Yeah.
They shouldn't
But
make
in a
it,
way,
right?
then they should make it. It has to be something precious, which it
Right.
was traditionally, and so then it will be used correctly.
It is actually a very valuable thing, and it should be
Mm,
treated like that.
yeah.
Exactly. And if people are going to sell, chemical representations or adulterated oils, then they should be honest about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So with your with your company for your distillation products, it's called Forgotten Plants. And I'm just curious about the
Yeah.
name.
Well, because, you know, a lot of the plants in the Southwest are kind of forgotten. So, you know, there are a lot, it's the desert, it's the high desert. So people think, oh, there's nothing there. Or, you know, they have this idea of the
Yeah.
desert being the sandy desert where
Yeah.
there's cactuses but actually it's very alpine, and then there are valleys. And so there are a lot of aromatic plants such as chamisa and snakeweed, and we have our own sagebrush, and there's yerba mansa, and there's all the lovely conifer, the pinyon. But you know, a lot of these plants are forgotten about. They were used by tribe, they were used, you know, in ceremony, they were used for cleansing, protection, and for health benefits. But they've kind of often been neglected. So the idea is, you know, the forgotten plants is to remember them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much life in the desert. You know, it maybe brings to mind like a stark, sandy, hot, dry thing when you think about the desert, but being there and just getting to know and seeing all these different plants, there's so much medicine there.
The one
Yeah,
I
and
always,
they're so adaptive, you know.
yeah.
Yes, they're
They're
so
so
adapt.
adaptive. They adapt so
Yeah.
well. Like the juniper can live out the, you know, if it's a drought, it does better than any of the others, better than pinyon, better than any of the, because it has this whole method in its roots, which is like it has this lignin that protects the xylem or the phloem. I can't remember which, probably the xylem because it's coming upwards. So it stops any loss of humidity. So, you know,
Mm.
it can make use of every drop of humidity from the soil, and live for hundreds of years in very dry conditions. So all the plants have their own magical way of adapting. And that it's that adaptation that, you know, when you're working with the plant, you can really sort of gain strength from.
Mm.
Can you distill cactus?
No,
Yeah.
cactus, you could, and you'd get a hydrosol, but you wouldn't get any oil.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mostly
It's
water.
not really an aromatic plant. Yeah.
What about
Yeah,
the,
it
you have
is.
creosote
Yeah.
bush up
I was
there?
gonna ask about that too. Do you have creosote like chaparral?
Yeah, we do have creosote, and it's not where I live, it's further in the south, but my son was talking about this, and apparently it doesn't yield
Oh,
an oil.
huh. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so resinous,
But we
though.
have, yeah, it has got a stickiness. I don't know why we haven't distilled it, but apparently because it doesn't yield an oil, and I think the oil is to if it does is toxic.
Oh,
But you'd
okay.
have to check
Yeah.
that because I'm not too sure.
That's just the most memorable medicinal plant from the
Like
Southwest for
the
me.
smell, like when after a rain, the creosote smell, it
Yeah,
just sort of rises up
yeah,
from the desert and it
from
smells
the
kind of
yeah.
good, but kind of
Well,
funky.
yeah, it's an interesting plant. I don't really know it very well because it doesn't grow near me, but the two
Right.
that I love, you want to know the
Mm,
two that I love? So, well, and I'm saying the two that I love because, you know, I'm still getting to know them, you know, and I've gone very, very slowly. I was really, really, well, I was a botany teacher, so I was very, very into the plants in Europe. And when I got here, I realized it's like, it's so slow. I take my time. I let the plants come to me. I'm no longer sort of that, I got to know all the plants. But there's
nice.
two that I really, really love. The first one is sagebrush.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
Artemisia tridentata, and I love it because in alchemy, it you know it's gray. It has like a veil over it, like a white veil, and it's full of ketones. And so, like other plants that have that white veil are things like helichrysum, the lavender stoicas, the other Artemisia is wormwood. So, and they're
Mm.
all high in ketones, and ketones apparently are a molecule that is slightly disincarnated. It's
Huh.
like it's there, but it's not really there. And this, I believe, is why the sagebrush survives so well in the driest, sandiest areas. It's like I'm here, but there's a part of me that's not here, and that's how I'm gonna survive. And so we use it when we're working through the alchemical stages with women in menopause, for example. There's a stage called sublimatio, which is where, like the gas in a distillation, you rise above your life. in order, instead of saying, oh God, what am I going to do? I've just got my nose in the steering wheel and I can't see further. You rise above and you see where you've come from, and you're able to see your possibilities. And so sagebrush really lets us do this with the ketones. It really, and so I'll take them on a guided journey with that. And the other plant that I really love from the high desert is yerba mansa.
Love
And yerba mansa is a root, yeah. And I knew that herbalists used her as a tincture, and when I first came here, we distilled her in a small copper still. And there's a blog post on the Aromanosis website called The Spirit of Yerba Mansa, because I had just had a diagnosis of cancer. We distilled yerba mansa, and we live in an earthship, so there are no full walls. It's a sort of, space with half walls. So the earthship filled with this smell. And my husband went to bed, the kids went to bed, and I stayed up and I went into this trip. Couldn't believe it. It was like I was tripping. And I remember going upstairs at some point to my husband, and he sort of woke up. He said, I've had the most psychedelic dream. And we were like, hang on, what is happening? And I remember we were lying, looking out of the airship window at the stars, which we were used to doing. And it was like Venus was coming at us. And so the next day we did a lot of research, and it has a molecule called L-amycin, which is a precursor to mescaline.
Wow.
And so we'd sort of hit ourselves with this molecule, or with, the energy at least of this aromatic plant. But she was very, very healing, and helped me to really turn something around that had been, I think, at the heart of this cervical cancer. So I've used her ever since. I use her like an energy of the dark goddess. She's a root. She's very connected to the story of La Llorona, which is a Mexican myth. And that's the way I love working with plants, to tell you the truth. That's why April's much better at this is for this. I'm rubbish at that now. I'm much more into
sort of the
and that's why we work well together.
I love it. Yeah. Oh, so cool.
So you're saying with the sagebrush, the Artemisia, it has ketones?
Yeah.
And that's what...
Yeah, ketones.
And that's what people who are on like a ketogenic diet.
Yeah. I don't know about that, what it is in the diet. Ketones they're the dangerous molecule that people say if you ingest essential oils with lots of ketones. For example, they're apparently 2 teaspoons of garden sage essential oil will kill a man.
Oh, wow.
Because it's full of ketones. So ketones shouldn't be ingested. And I only use them you use them for smell in a small amount. But we gain more ketones when we get older.
Oh.
So again, there's that idea, well, maybe we're getting near, less embodied
as
we get older. But they are known, I didn't make it up, that they are slightly disincarnated molecules. People in the, well-known people in the aromatherapy world, the guy who runs Ashadi talks about this. And I see it, I use it. I use the sagebrush when I'm leading women. So I lead them on this guided journey sort of with an eagle to fly above their life, to see how their mother line has affected them, and then to see where they are. And we use sagebrush for that.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean that Artemisia genus is just such a powerful,
absolutely,
powerful plants.
Yeah,
but I'm like intrigued now about the ketones, because from my understanding of the keto diet, if you aren't eating any sugar, then your body starts eating ketones, which is like a fat molecule.
Yeah, I don't know, no idea.
So I'm wondering, it's like, well, I'll that sparked something. I'll keep.
Yeah. But going back to the Artemisia family, Artemis, she's the wild woman. She's the huntress. She is at one with the forest. She is the forest, basically.
Yeah.
So there's this idea of, the feminine wildness in that genus. There's Artemisia vulgaris, mugwort, which is a plant that's used for dreams. Again, this disincarnated aspect. Also, mugwort is a plant for the feminine. So, yeah, I really like that genus too a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm curious about goldenrod. You said that you grow that. Is that not something that
grows? We don't grow it. It grows wild on the land. Yeah. Right. And this is the first year that we've distilled it.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful plant, as you know, and there are lots of different sort of, well, different species, but also they hybrid between themselves. So we're lucky to have my son, who's a botanist. So he botanized our goldenrod as gigantus. So
Talladega gigantus.
yes.
Okay, the giant one.
And so we distilled it, and he said, "Oh God, it smells horrible." And this is very, very common, when it's like wine. I used to be a winemaker, and you can't rush these things. So he said it smells horrible. And so I said, "Okay, I won't." I was going to go back, and there was so much of it, do a second distillation. So I said, "Well, we'll
Yeah.
wait." And so
Yeah.
he puts once we've distilled, he puts what's come off the still, he takes off the hydrosol, and then he puts the oil in the freezer, because then that separates any water, because it's very hard to completely get rid of the water. So that separates any of the residue of the hydrosol from the oil. And he leaves it in there. So he left it in there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. Then he rang me, said, "It's really nice."
Oh,
So,
really?
these things need time.
Interesting.
They take their time to find their. So I haven't worked with it yet. I couldn't tell you how I would use it yet in
Yeah.
terms of the work that I do, but I'm excited because it's a beautiful plant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure about it, as far as working with the hydrosol or the essential oil, but we did have Kate Gilday teach a flower essence class here from Liberty
Right.
Essence. We have our plant
Yeah.
cutting conference, and she spoke about it in the flower essence form being a powerful herb for community. Because if you see how golden
Yes.
grows
Yeah.
in community, it just makes
Yeah.
this dense patch, and
Yeah.
it's just one takeaway
Yeah.
from
Well, that's
Kate.
interesting because I did a meditation in somebody else, my business mentor, who's great, did a meditation with us, and I do this class with my husband, and we were working each of us with a deity. And first of all, we had to meditate on a sacred piece of land, and we both, without telling each other, found ourselves on our land, which is very sacred. It's in part of a pueblo. It's a land grant piece of land that happens to be in a pueblo, so it's really, really sacred. And I, in the meditation, saw goldenrod, but I'd chosen, my husband as a deity had chosen the mountain god, and I had instinctively chosen the corn maiden. And so, this is a corn maiden.
Oh, yeah.
But when I was meditating, I saw all the goldenrod. And the corn maiden is about, the mother who feeds, who nourishes. And so I think there's that idea of the goldenrod being a sort of spiritual nourishment for the land, because she's so beautiful. She was growing all down by the river, these
I love
beautiful
that.
bright yellow, sorry,
Yeah.
flowers. Really, really beautiful.
Yeah, I think she is, protective of the
Yeah,
land and also just giving so much life to the bees and the pollinators,
exactly. Yeah,
especially that late season when our beekeepers here they make a goldenrod honey from all of
nice.
the,
Yeah,
season of the year that they pull the honey is the time when they're eating all the goldenrod. So,
yeah.
But there's
I
a
know when I was
smell.
harvesting, I was thinking I must leave some for the bees, because I was with, the bees were sort of harvesting alongside me.
yeah, I'm sure there's plenty for them.
Yeah, yeah,
But the hives during goldenrod season, there's this smell that happens
It's
that's
true.
stronger than any other time
Season.
period. Any other season. There's that's goldenrod season, and it's a
yeah.
really
Nice.
distinctive smell.
Yeah.
So I
We could
wonder.
smell it in the air. We're like, what is that honey but
Yeah, it
funky?
is a honey sweet smell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm.
So I guess before we wrap up too, I'm interested also in your, talking about healing and talking about making the unconscious conscious and, working through your diagnosis from your perspective and for the modalities that those lenses,
Yeah.
how much of the disease is just unconscious shadow or material that needs to be digested?
Dare I say,
I'm
all of it,
asking.
all of
All
it.
of it.
All of it.
So,
Mm.
well, the way that I see it is like the anatomy of the psyche is, we have a physical body, we are emotional beings, we have a mind, so we have everything that goes with that, beliefs, memories, analysis. We have a spiritual self, and we're connected to the collective unconscious, and it's part of us and we're part of it. So I actually sort of see it as all these aspects have to be taken into consideration. But by the time we're dealing with a physical illness, we've probably ignored or bypassed or tried to repress a collective ancestral story, or archetypal story, a spiritual aspect of ourself. Then we probably got some thoughts about something that or a belief that was doing our head in, or something that we didn't want to look at, so we ignored it. And then our emotions, repressing them. I don't know how to feel. I was never taught to feel, or I don't like feeling. And then finally, oh shit, I've got an ulcer, or I've got this. I mean, my cancer was actually at the point where the cervix meets the uterus, which is where the sperm meets the feminine. And my whole healing was about healing the relationship between the masculine and the feminine in my mother line. And I had carried it. It was like I was the last hope, and I carried it physically.
Wow.
But actually, the healing was, I went back to my great great grandmother. And as I healed each woman's story, I had to find the story first because it had been kept secret. I healed her in me.
Yes.
And that's to do with the mitochondrial DNA. That's another conversation.
It's so
But
crazy.
yeah. So yeah, I think we can't just look at one part of ourselves. We have to, we're holistic. That's what plant medicine's about. That's what, any form of holistic healing is. So instead of just saying, well, I use the whole plant, hang on, be aware of the whole person, and learn what is the whole person. What are all these parts that need to be honored and worked with, and to be able to heal holistically.
Yeah. Do you teach about this with your school, Aromanosis?
I teach about this as in the mentorship with women. I touch on it quite a lot with the hybrid class, and then the women that go into the 9 months program, they learn this because they're going to be facilitating. And then in Aromanosis, I accidentally blew my Instagram account up.
Yeah.
Just by simply telling people about these different things. And so, and Aromanosis had been sort of, what do we do? How are we going to? And so now, actually, this weekend, I've blocked out the weekend. So I'm going to create a 2-tier year-long class, one for, just people for self-healing, and one for people who are in the healing arts on all this. That's my next project.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool. And can you purchase some of the hydrosols or essential oils from Forgotten Plants?
Yeah, Forgotten Plants sells them to Cathy's Attars. And at Cathy's Attars, we work with only 4 producers. We have a small range. Every oil there we have either produced or worked with. We have 2 friends in France. Both of them are very good friends and ex-students of mine, and 1 friend in India, and ourselves. And it's at cathysattars.com, CATHYSATTARS.com.
Okay, awesome. I'm sure some people would be very interested in checking that out.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So do you have anything else that's exciting and coming up that you want to share with our listeners?
Well, as I said, Aromanosis is about to launch some classes. Oh, and I don't know when this is coming out.
Probably in the next 2 weeks.
2 or 3.
Well, the next cohort of the Alchemy of Menopause is starting at sometime in early November. But if you go onto menopausealchemy.com, there's lots of lovely free material. So the Dark Goddess class that I think you did is there. People can watch it for free. There's my workbook, which is a 180-page workbook that I wrote when I was going through menopause, and that is the sort of basis of all this work, is free as a PDF.
Oh, cool.
And April's done a really beautiful free PDF about her side of the work. So there's lots of free stuff on there. And on aromanosis.com, there's lots of free stuff. There's shadow work, boundary work. So you can sort of binge a bit of free material. And there's a YouTube for menopause, the Alchemy of Menopause, with lots of videos.
Awesome. Yeah. So lots of ways that folks can learn from you online, which is fantastic. So yeah, thank you so much, Cathy, for this amazing conversation. I learned a lot from you just today. So appreciate you being on the show.
Well, thank you, guys. It's great to meet you. Let's stay in contact.
Yeah. Please. Absolutely.
Cheers.
Lots of love.
You too.